Daily Telegraph took the lead in publishing all the information, and of course very quickly all the other papers got onto it. Here was front page at the Times. On the same day, the Independent ran a front page that was completely black. It said MP's expenses, because the information that was being put out was all redacted, so that there was no incriminating information. Well, further sort of pressure did actually get it to be released. You know, we saw all this artificial anger being created in the media, anger at watered-down clean-up of MPs' expenses. A year in jail, the price MPs may have to pay for false expenses. Yeah. MPs want more of our cash for their pensions. And this hype was created to run for a period of 5 weeks, from the 1st of May until the end of the first week of June, the 5th of June. You know what the significance of that 5 weeks was? It was the run-up to the European elections. So the first 8 to 12 pages of every single national paper in the UK, every day for 5 weeks, was full of this bullshit. And it was a deliberate campaign to keep all debate about the EU and about the issues surrounding the EU elections out of the media. The purpose was to maintain the status quo, because if the issues had been debated, there was a very strong possibility, and these guys knew it, that the United Kingdom Independence Party, UKIP, would run away with the vote. Now, they knew they were going to get some extra votes anyway, but they wanted to effectively keep it under some control. So that when David Cameron becomes Prime Minister, as he probably will, next year, in June, May or June, when he becomes Prime Minister, he doesn't have to contend with a UKIP majority British majority in the European Parliament. And of course, yeah, that's the case, because the Tories effectively hold the balance there. It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. I mean, I knew they were going to come up with something, I just didn't know what it was. The swine flu didn't have the legs to last right through until June. This did. And the moment the European elections were over, this just basically disappeared into the ether. Here's the real kicker. After the Treaty of Lisbon is ratified, all of the federal legislation that has been passed since 1957 will come into play automatically. Now, I said 90,000 here because actually it's 111,000 laws that have been passed since 1957. And only about 20,000 of them have found their way onto the statute books in the UK and in Ireland. In most cases, they didn't go through Parliament, they were just rubber stamped. In most cases, it deals with real minutiae. In most cases, you won't even notice the impact. But of course, in some, it's very, very serious. But the big issue here is that it's Napoleonic law. And this is what has not been discussed, and it's what people just do not understand and appreciate. Here's a map of the world. The countries on this map in the light brown here are countries that effectively operate under common law. And funnily enough, of course, they're ostensibly the old colonies. The US has an exception here, Louisiana, because Louisiana, of course, was at one time French. So that still has a lot of French influence in the state's legal system. But for the US, for Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, India, the Middle East, Kenya and the likes in East Africa here, and of course the UK and Ireland. Common law. Common law means that from a habeas corpus point of view, you are innocent of anything you are accused of until you are proven to be guilty. Generally by, and the decision is by 12 of your peers. Under Napoleonic law, under civil law, you are guilty of anything you are accused of until you have proven yourself to be innocent. And in general, the ruling will be before judges, not before a jury. When it comes to product, under common law, everything is legal unless it is specifically made illegal. Under civil law, everything is illegal unless it is specifically sanctioned as being legal. And for any of you that went to Scott Tipp's presentation, who was the head of the National Health Federation in the USA, you will know that basically that's why a lot of natural health products are under threat, because the pharmaceutical industry has control of the Codex Alimentarius Commission, and they're setting up approval procedures that natural health companies will not be able to afford to go through, and they will not be able to get their products approved. So it's going to fundamentally change the whole way in which we operate under law. So this is Europe, and in this map, it's the light blue countries that operate under common law. Europe has various systems, various sort of marginal differences, but ostensibly it's all civil law, Napoleonic law. Law effectively established by the judges. And this is a classic from a few weeks ago. It was a Lord Chief Justice. He said, "Stop giving us all these new laws." Yeah, the guy obviously hadn't read the Treaty of Lisbon, because he would know that there's nothing he or anybody else can do to stop it. Because once the Treaty of Lisbon is ratified, the remaining 90,000 laws de facto come into play. And common law is consigned to the historical trash can. This is a statement actually I took from the We the People website, because I think it's probably the most succinct description of the lack of powers held by MEPs. It says the MEPs have practically no power whatsoever, yet are the only elected individuals. This is fake democracy. You can't emphasise that enough. It's fake democracy because the MEPs' hands are tied totally, and they are heavily controlled by the councillors and commissioners who are themselves unelected. They are chosen. David Bellamy told me that in 1994, when he was invited across to the Davos Economic Forum, and the reason he was invited was because he was being tapped to front the campaign for anthropogenic global climate change. And of course David Bellamy says, "I told him it was poppycock then and it's poppycock now." But whilst he was at that meeting, he saw a group of the players talking to Blair and Haig. And he asked the people that he was talking to, he said, what are they doing? Why are they here? Who are they talking to? And the people he was with said, "Oh, we're trying to decide which one becomes Prime Minister. We think they're elected." MEPs are only permitted to make suggestions for amendments to draft laws, which the commissioners present to them for consideration. No, they don't. They file them. They don't exactly, even that gives the impression that they actually present them with the document and say, "Here, take a look at this." They don't. It's filed, and if anybody happens to find it, stumble across it, and then spot something they don't like, then they can address it. But it's not exactly open and transparent. So giving the false appearance of cooperation between the commissioners and MEPs and decision-making powers of the MEPs, they are not permitted to suggest any new laws at all, and their suggestions can be disregarded in an instant. It is the unelected commissioners who decide whether MEP suggestions have any chance at all, immediately throwing democracy out of the equation altogether. Do not look upon your MEP as being a true representative for you or Ireland. As well-meaning as many of them are, and I think that's a truism, they may speak for you on certain issues, but will not likely be heard. It would appear that MEPs have no place in the power structure of post-Lisbon Europe. However, there are many MEPs who are totally against the Lisbon Treaty, as we are, we the people, and are absolutely vital to us in helping the world to open its eyes and see what the Lisbon Treaty and globalisation is really all about. And there's a wonderful YouTube clip of Nigel Farage being challenged at a meeting in Dublin. And he very quickly identifies that his aggressive questioner is a Monet professor, which means that basically she's actually part of the fraternity, or sorority in her case, that has effectively been trained and instructed to indoctrinate the young people at university into federalism. And he exposed her in a heartbeat. Farage, he doesn't get any coverage really in the British media because obviously he speaks the truth.